say you are listening to, you are absolutely listening to the George Espinlove Show, coming to you live from the Funny Farm. Now, with no further ado, here comes Georgie!
Thank you. Thank you. All right, thank you very, very much. It is good to be in the land of the loons, I'm telling you. To all of our friends down the street, around the corner, across this great nation, and around the world, I welcome you to the George Espinlove Show, that comes on the air each and every evening at 6:30 p.m. Eastern Time right here on Spreaker.com. We want you to sit back, relax, but before you do that, how about calling a friend or a family member or shouting across the fence to your neighbor and tell them to tune in. Tune into the George Espinlove Show, because you're going to hear something about the law tonight that perhaps you have never heard before in your life. I know I haven't. And our guest is going to be with us from South Africa. So when it's 6:33 p.m., which it is right now here on the East Coast, it is 12:33 a.m. It's already Friday morning in Johannesburg. And that is where Pierre Wolmarans, I asked him how to say it, and he said it's close enough. So Pierre Wolmarans is going to be with us, and he is going to be telling us the funny side, things that have happened in the courtroom and out, things that he has personally witnessed and other lawyers have shared with him. And he has written a book. That's the title of his book, Laugh and Law. And we'll get right to Pierre in just a moment. But remember, we live in our world. We don't have a mailbox. We don't have a specific mailing address, but we do have email. GeorgeCE@Comcast.net. GeorgeCE@Comcast.net. Keep those emails coming. We just get all warm and fuzzy and bubbly on the inside every time we receive an email from someone, no matter where it is. We just love it, and we'll get back to you just as quick as we can. Now, we're going to bring Pierre Wolmarans on the show, and I believe you're going to be entertained. Did you make that phone call? Did you send that email? Did you shout to the neighbor? All right. Prop your feet up. Sit back. Fold your hands. Don't fall asleep. And listen to what our guest has to say tonight. And if you have any comments or questions, call this number, 302-497-3414, or george.espenlaub. That's ESPENLAUB. 302-497-3414 for any comment or questions that you might have for our guest tonight. Pierre, welcome to the George Espinlove Show.
Thank you, George. Thanks.
Could you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yes, I'm 55 years. I'll be 55 this year, and I've been in law since I sort of left school study law. I went and studied at the University of Pretoria. And after that, I worked as a civil servant for a while, and then did my, what you call, articles or internship at a law firm. And then later on qualified, and I was even at one stage a partner at PricewaterhouseCoopers, where I was in their legal division. And then I also went and practiced for my own account for the past probably 10 years already. So I've been in law as long as I've been in a career.
Is And I know there's different laws in different countries, but is the law anywhere similar to what it is here in the States?
There's a lot of law in the state which is very relevant in South Africa and vice versa, because even if you look at some of United States legal principles, it also emanates from the old Roman law. You know, the Romans were very good with law, and a lot of the law worldwide emanates from Roman law and later on Dutch and English law. So a lot of the laws that in the United States has the same kind of principles that you have in even South Africa, and to that extent, they're different systems. Of course, you guys have a jury system. You know, often where you have a jury in South Africa, we don't have a jury system. In the previous sort of 100 years ago, we had a jury system in South Africa, but now we only have judges or appellate divisions where there could be 5 judges presiding, and we also, of course, have a constitutional court, which is very similar to your sort of, you know, high court where all your real appeals and your constitutional matters and your amendments are being heard. So there's a lot of similarities worldwide on law. Of course, you know, there are obviously differences, but I mean, a lot of your acts even apply. If you think of the Sarbanes-Oakley Act, which the 2 senators passed after the Enron scandal, that applies to South Africa in sort of disclosures and those kind of things. So there's a lot of similarities. In law, I think if you're a lawyer, you know, lawyers are there to sort of differ with each other, and there's always one that's wrong and one that's right. So there's that good saying that says if 2 lawyers ever agree, one wasn't thinking, you know.
You are an international lawyer, and you are a specialist in what?
I specialize in employment law and commercial law. Typically, employment law would relate to all employment-related matters, be it now dismissals, restructuring of staff, policies, whatever has to do with employment, even health and safety, those kind of things. And commercial law is typical your contract law, your business law, mergers and acquisitions, due diligence, those kind of things. So it's a field that sort of I involuntarily developed into, and before you know it, you regard it as a specialist. But you know what they say about a specialist? A specialist is somebody that knows more and more about less and less, and eventually everything about nothing.
That's a pretty good definition. I think that covers it about pretty thorough, doesn't it? I like that.
Yeah.
That caused me to lose my train of thought. That's all right, though.
Sorry. I'm sorry.
What countries have you practiced law in, or where have you been?
It's not that I've practiced, but I've been fortunate to have clients. You know, I've been in England and in Spain and in many African countries like Malawi and the likes, you know. So it's more or less European countries that I've been involved in. And, of course, over the years, you have clients, especially with multinationals. You have to check Australian law, and you have to check American law, and you have to check English law. So because contracts are sort of, you know, all over the world, and some of these multinational contracts, you know, is anywhere in the world. So you have to sort of get yourself clued up in lots of international law and principles with the client you have. So to a large extent, your client determines where you deliver your services, you know.
Mm-hmm. How long ago did you write your book?
I did it the last year over Christmas. You know, we have in South Africa over Christmas time is our best weather. It's our summer when I think you guys are having winter. And then the country sort of closes down for 4 weeks. You know, it's a silly season. We enjoy our Christmas and our New Year, and everybody's on leave. And I was a bit bored. And I thought I had such wonderful incidents already in my life, which I personally witnessed. And of course, a lot of stories, you know, and urban legends that you hear over the years. And I actually started dictating this book and writing it. And it's a small book that has 13 sort of short versions, you know, truthful versions of funny things that happen in court. I personally was involved in some 8 of them. And I actually just thought, you know, I must pen this down. And it eventually became a project, and I actually enjoyed it in the end. It's my first book I've ever written. So it was just one of those things that I thought of doing, you know.
I shared with you before we come on the air that probably most of us, when we have heard or talked to lawyers or heard stories of courtrooms and watched proceedings, it was all the law and the procedures and the seriousness of it all. But until I come across you, I have never heard of or read anything that was on the other side, the humorous side of what happens.
You're very right. It is a serious place. I mean, people's lives depends on outcomes in courtrooms, and people can lose, their whole financial reality by just doing a wrong contract or a wrong deal. So it is definitely very serious, but it's often because of that seriousness and the pressure and the tenseness that goes with it that, humor is often a relief. And it's never intended. It's very seldom intended. Of course, you get judges that has excellent sense of humor. I'm going to give you a few examples in a while about judges that really are funny and sometimes try their best to be funny. But the point is that it is a serious affair. And if something remotely humorous happens, it usually, caters for a good laugh. And it's funnier than in anywhere else. It's not like telling a joke in a bar. It's really funny because it's serious there, and when something pops up that is funny, either from a judge or a witness that doesn't know what to say and might be saying the wrong thing or an unintended thing, that is where it's sort of, well, let me give you a good example. Here's what, there's a judge, in England, they call them Justice Lord, and he was the master of the rolls of the Supreme Court in England. In 1944, he already said, judges are supposed to do the following. He had to summarize what he thinks judges were supposed to do. And he said, it's to people, persons whom they do not know, to enter into contracts that they do not understand, to purchase goods that they do not want with money that they have not got.
When these funny things take place in the courtroom or in a proceeding, I guess because of where it took place, it kind of like burns into your memory, and you just probably never forget it.
Absolutely. In fact, if you get a bunch of lawyers together, so here in South Africa, probably so in the States as well, or anywhere in the world for that matter, there's usually a new story. Very seldom will you find a colleague that he hasn't heard something or something happened that becomes a new story, and it sort of sticks in your mind. And then there are good ones, and then there are average ones, but you get really good stories. And I can give you a nice example of one of your judges, George Landis in USA, and he sent a man to prison for 20 years, for some serious crime in 1949. But the guy was already 81 years old when he was now sent to prison, and he protested vehemently because he said, look, I'm a very sick old man. I would not be able to complete my jail term, being 81 years old. And the judge says, well, try your best. In fact, another lawyer in the States then actually wrote a poem about it, which he called Poetic, in a little poetry volume, which he did poems just about funny things in law. It's called Poetic Justice. I can't find the book, but I've read up on it in other papers, which is quite good. And he calls the poem The Judge and the Old Man. And he says, 20 years for a man who has reached 81. I submit to your lordship, it cannot be done. But the judge said, why not? When he'd heard the old man, if you can't do the lot, do as much as you can.
That, when I imagine if I was sitting in that courtroom when the judge said that, it would take me totally by surprise. And then I know my reaction would be that I would have to crack up over that. I mean,
absolutely.
That's not something that the judge could rehearse. It just came from his head out his mouth that way, right?
That's the point, because if you think of it, he didn't know that this guy was going to protest about it and about his age. So, obviously that was just reactionary, and it's actually tragic to think he had to say that to the guy, but I mean, it remains funny, whether we like it or not. It does remain funny. It's sort of
right.
a pop humor, but it's funny, isn't it?
That is wild. When the lawyers all get together, maybe you're on to something, Pierre. You ought to get a group of lawyers together and perhaps go on tour and what do they call it? Do like a Saturday Night Live show or something. That would really loosen people up.
I think so, because if you do a sort of a road show or something, because I can tell you what, if you could put any lawyer that's been probably longer in this game for 10 years can tell you a few stories, that's for sure. And probably amongst, let's say if you get 5 lawyers in a room, you'll probably have 5 fantastic stories, which each of them can tell just on their own experience, not just even reading up on it. What is interesting, we had a very, very eminent professor, Professor Alison Kahn, here at University of Witwatersrand, which is one of the big universities in South Africa, in Johannesburg here. And he actually wrote a series of articles in our magazine about humor in law, which is quite excellent, because he went and studied court rulings and cases, and he really went to in-depth sort of research on it. And a lot of the things that he wrote, became so funny that it just sort of get passed on from generation to generation.
What are some of the funniest things that you saw take place?
Man, it's not a court story. It's a story about a judge. It's one of the chapters in my book. It's going to take a bit of explaining, and you'll have to envisage what I'm telling you, or sort of in your mind. You know, your typical public toilet or restroom has these cubicles, which is open at the top and open at the bottom. And it's private, of course, you lock it, but there's an opening at the bottom and at the top. Now, this particular judge was one of the characters in South Africa, and he was a judge in the Pretoria High Court, and he was then elevated to our appeal court, which is in Bloemfontein. That's where at that stage it was the highest court before we ever had a constitutional court. In 1994, when we became a democracy, we have a constitutional, and a constitutional court was installed, which is now our highest court of highest authority. The appeal division is still a court of high authority where 5 judges preside. But typically, this guy was now elevated to the appeal bench, so to speak. They call it a bench here. I don't know what they call it in the States. You go to the bench when you become a judge. And he was now sort of elevated to the appeal bench, but he didn't leave his home in Pretoria. So he would fly Monday mornings. He would fly by airplane from Johannesburg Airport to Bloemfontein, and then sit there the 5 days and fly back on a Friday evening. But at the time, he had an injury with one of his legs, and he was supposed to use, and he was told by his doctor, to use a walking stick until the leg was, fully recuperated. And when he arrived in Bloemfontein the Monday morning, these judges, they have drivers and cars which pick them up and then take them to court or wherever they must take them. And as he arrived there, he realized he had a call of nature, and of course he went into this typical restroom where this cubicle was, which is open at the bottom and open at the top, and he went and he answered his call of nature, and then put his walking stick against the back of the wall whilst he attended to the call. And as he left, he was walking quite a way. Now, on the way to where he was going to be picked up by his driver, he realized he forgot his walking stick in the loo. And he turned around to go and fetch it. Now, when he arrived there, it was only, Bloemfontein is not a big city. The cubicles consisted of about 3 cubicles, and he saw all the cubicles were locked and occupied. And he realized, oh my goodness, I don't want to knock now and sort of, bother the guys that are in there. And he sort of bent down and looked under the opening and saw his walking stick standing against the wall where he put it. So luckily it was one of the cubicles that was on the side, so he pushed his hand under the cubicle, grabbed hold of the walking stick to sort of just take it out without bothering the present occupant of this facility. You see, so as he took this stick, or this walking stick, and he sort of leveled it to pull it from, there's about probably 10, 20 centimeters, which is open at the bottom. And he actually took the walking stick, and as he pulled it out, the occupant of the loo at that stage actually grabbed hold of the walking stick. And he thought, what nonsense is this? Why is this guy hanging onto my walking stick? And he sort of gave it an abrupt pull, gave it a hard pull, and, nearly took the guy off his seat. And he also heard a lot of protestations. And of course, when he had the walking stick in his hand, he realized it wasn't his. So these things happen. And it's very nice if judges tell you these things, But that is typically, to me, a very nice story. But the funniest story I probably ever heard was where I was personally involved. I acted for a lady, what we call pro amico. Now, pro amico is a Latin word for you act without being paid. I don't know if they use the same words in the state. In other words, you feel either sorry for the client, or it's a friend of yours, family member, and you say you're prepared to go and do the case without being paid. And this lady was quite a rough and tumble lady, and I actually had an idea. She claimed constructive dismissal because her boss didn't treat her very well, and I arrived at the arbitration because in South Africa you do employment-related stuff in arbitration, and she was now, as I prepared my evidence, I, sort of always get the feeling, you get a gut feeling, if you've been in this game long enough, you get a gut feeling whether the client is telling you the full story or not.
Uh-huh.
And you prompt them, you obviously want the whole version. You don't want to be surprised when you get at the tribunal because it'll be embarrassing for you and for the client. Sometimes they say a client pays you, let's say you charge $1,000 an hour. A client pays you $10 to do the case for him and $990 for you to make a fool of yourself. So that's how it works in any event. So we go to this arbitration. And my feeling was not wrong. She didn't tell me everything. And as she was cross-examined by my opponent, who acted for the employer, it came out that she had a bit of a foul mouth during, altercations with the employer. In fact, using very, very derogatory words towards her employer and that kind of thing. And of course, I wanted to box that word doesn't come out because it was not, a good word. It was sort of, particularly vulgar. And I said, well, it's fine, let's carry on. And I tried to move on. But then the arbitrator, the presiding official said, no, I want to know that word because I want to know whether it's sufficiently intensive for me to sort of regard this as your behavior is so bad that you cannot really claim constructive dismissal. You're the author of your own demise. And then the word didn't come out. And also the arbitrator was a woman. So I didn't want the word to be used in her presence in any event. Because I didn't know what word it is. She never told me. And of course, it was a word referring to private parts and a very slangish one at it. And the next thing is the arbitrator said, I insist that you tell me what word it is. She says to the witness, and the witness then said, well, that was the word. And then this foul word came out. And obviously, everybody laughed but me. And her husband also was present, and he did laugh. And then the arbitrator, she wanted to make sure that that's the word she heard, and she repeated the word. And then this woman said, yes, that is the word. So my client all of a sudden was also now agreeing with. Now, that was very funny because I didn't expect it. I don't think anybody expected it. We still got the case. She still got a bit of compensation. I think she got a 3-month salary award because of the way that, because my attitude was, even if she was so foul-mouthed, why didn't you guys give her a warning or something? Why didn't you moan about it at that stage? But that to me was a personal experience, which I thought was funny. Then another one, I wasn't personally involved, but if I could rate it, probably the funniest court happening in my experience is where a guy, the judge, he was a habitual offender. He was often in court, often found guilty of all sorts of petty crimes and nonsense, and he was now sort of doing more serious crimes, and he was in court so many times that even the state didn't provide him with lawyers anymore. He was just a bad apple. And on court, he was now found guilty of another crime, and the judge had enough of him. He was already well known to the judge because he was there so often. And the judge said to him, okay, I found you guilty. I'm now going to give you an opportunity to mention anything to me in mitigation before I pass sentence. He then used the F word to the judge. He's just one of those rough guys that didn't, behave accordingly. And he said, F you to the judge. And the judge said, don't worry, I've got 2 words for you too, 5 years.
Now that's witty. Exactly. That's being quick on your feet.
Absolutely. That is so. And that is always very pleasant if a judge is prepared to be funny, like that kind of thing.
What about, here in the States, I call them scandal sheets, but when celebrities go through divorce court and it gets all mean and nasty and this and that and those, and they print it and slap it everywhere in society and everybody reads about it. But yet there's some funny things that take place in divorce courts. Have you ever heard stories about things that happen in a divorce court?
It's very fun. 2 incidents in the divorce court, and one incident I'll tell you about is quite, you get some of these second marriages where if you look at the elderly gentleman marrying this lovely young girl, it's sort of Spot the Millionaire. The guy doesn't have any other thing going for him, but good enough bank balance for the lady to be interested. And this was typically one of those marriages where this old boy married a very voluptuous, nice young woman. But of course, she became a bit of a spendthrift after she married him, and he was a tight guy, so he worked hard for his money, and he wasn't going to waste it on this young number. And he sued her for a divorce. In fact, it was one of our firm's cases when I was still an article clerk, so I had to accompany her to court, and he was our client. What we didn't realize is that she was present in court. We have in South Africa, I think similar to the States, we have what you call unopposed divorce cases. That's typically where the parties settle the maintenance and settle who takes the kids and settle the whole divorce. And the judge merely has to make the settlement an order of court. It's not an opposed divorce, it's an unopposed divorce. Then, it gets enrolled on this particular day in the week, and they run through 100 of them, and all these people get divorced quite quickly. It takes about 5 minutes. It's like it's actually like a machine. But the complainant or the plaintiff that sues for the divorce has to get in under oath and then explain why the marriage is irretrievably broken down. That's how South African law works. So this guy got into the witness stand, and he was explaining that this young woman was, absolutely a spendthrift, and he couldn't stand it. And he wasn't going to carry on with this marriage. It was now, to his mind, irretrievably broken down. And we didn't realize she's in court. And then she got up and actually started talking to the judge and say, she didn't know what to do. She wants to ask forgiveness for the old boy. She wants to come back. Please, he's thrown her out of the house. She really wants to give it another try. And the judge was rather sympathetic. And he said, you should have opposed the summons. You should not have just left it. You can't now come here and make it an opposed matter. Why didn't you know? No, she didn't know what to do, and she doesn't have a lawyer, and the usual stories. And eventually he turns to the old man, the judge, and he says, now, come on, sir. Aren't you going to give her another chance? And you know what? He had a walking stick too, and he lifted up and he showed it towards the back of the courtroom, and he says, even if she brings a wagon of gold through those doors in the back, I will not even take her back. So, that happens, It's, and divorces are emotion. It's always funny. It is really funny.
I saw in the write-up that it said suing your neighbor. What does that mean? Suing your neighbor.
Suing your neighbor. In the book, is it a write-up?
No, about the book? It was in the write-up on the rtironline.com where your information was at. Suing your neighbor, stuck in a contract, advice for your audience on general legal questions.
That's the write-up. It's probably if your neighbor makes a lot of noise, you can sue him. There's not really a story about suing your neighbor, but we have an interesting case in South Africa where two brothers that were neighboring farmers actually took each other right up to the appellate division, fought over years about noises that the other one made, because the one didn't want, the birds in his sort of farmland, and he actually put up a thing that made shooting noises like a gun. Every sort of often 20 minutes or something, this thing would make a terrible noise. And the brother complained about it and said, because in South African law, it says your neighbor must be able to tolerate what you do. And if it's intolerable, there's no real hard line. When is it intolerable? So often they will consider the facts. And this matter ended up right in court. It's not in my book. It's just I'm now talking about suing your neighbor. I think they probably said, if you want to sue your neighbor, call in and ask this guy how to do it. So that's basically, I think, what they were, because neighbors can become very, very aggressive towards each other. In fact, we have a few cases here in South Africa where I can tell you, it seems to me they become totally besotted to give each other as much hell as possible.
Are some of the witnesses that get on the stand and testify, have they been funny at times?
Always. Yeah, not always, but you often get witnesses that can really be funny. And I'll give you another example. There was a Judge Darling, his surname was Darling, in England, and this particular plaintiff complained about the fact she sought compensation because she was, rehearsing to be taken up in one of those famous choirs that sang at these churches, and she didn't make it. I mean, she wasn't found to be successful incumbent, and then she claimed compensation because she felt she had a good enough voice. And during cross-examination of the witness singing capabilities, I mean, and the witness said that she could sing very well, albeit that she can't sing like the Archangel Gabriel. She had a lovely voice, but she's not the Archangel Gabriel. And then the judge reacted with, Judge Darling said, he interjected with, that, ma'am, is hopefully a pleasure yet to come. Because I haven't heard the Archangel Gabriel singing, so I can't compare you to the Archangel Gabriel. I hope it's a pleasure yet to come.
Gabriel, Gabriel was
often,
the fellow that played the horn, right?
Yes, that's right. He's the horn player. That's right. Indeed.
I'm sorry I interrupted you. Go ahead.
No problem. So you often will get a witness that, can be quite funny, and it's unintended, as well, because in another matter before the same Justice Darling, Lord Darling, the accused was found guilty, and it was quite clear that he was going to be spending a bit of time in jail. It was his second time that he was now, being charged with the crime, and he pleaded with Judge Darling in tears. He said, I don't see why they call me a professional crook. I've only done 2 jobs, and each time I've been caught. and Judge Darling said, he reacted, he says, please, sir, do not be concerned. It's never been suggested that you've been successful in your chosen profession.
I wonder, do you know of any judges that has ever written a book that is somewhat similar to yours?
Not that I'm aware of in South Africa. I once stumbled upon a book in London where they had sort of, funny stories about judges, and they would actually refer to the judges, but I've never come across a judge writing it. And, they could be done because these are public hearings, so it can be done. And I think they probably be the best people to do it, because they see human nature in all its facets, its ugly and its good sides. And it will actually be nice if a judge actually does that and give us a good book on a good bunch of jokes, or make a sort of a, international book where a few judges can work together.
Yeah, that would really be interesting. Can you remember a time or a certain incident that took place that was so funny that you just lost it? Has there ever been a time that you've lost it because it was funny?
I must admit, I've always succeeded in keeping my pose, sometimes at great, intent and with great vigor. But I mean, because you don't want to do something, but it is very nice if you see the judge is smiling. Then you realize it would not be out of place to also smile or laugh. You sort of take your cue from him. But I heard a story which apparently was the guys had to adjourn the court for a while. And I don't know whether it's urban legend. I can't tell you that's categoric, but I know the judge's surname, which is ascribed to in South Africa, and he's one of our top judges. He's deceased already, but I mean, his son even became a judge, and his grandson now is a judge. So it's a real family of lawyers, and they were all very capable people, 3rd-generation judge already. But the first guy, he was a real character, and he had a bit of a foul mouth himself. He was not adverse to using the odd, not in court, not in open court, obviously, but if he was off the bench, he wasn't afraid of being a bit rough. And I think of the Neil Diamond song now, which says, I never swear, but I never cared for the sound being wrong. That's sort of where this guy was pitching. In any event, so he was presiding, and as he was still making his notes, a witness evidence was completed and was now leaving the witness stand. And of course, the advocate or the lawyer now called the next witness to the stand, and the judge was still making a note. And when he looked up, the judge's clerk, his clerk already have sworn in the new witness to take the oath. And he now wanted to obviously to put this guy's name down so he can start keeping notes again of this guy's evidence. So he didn't hear the name of the person being called, and this guy's surname was Language. So the advocate obviously said, my lord, I'm now calling Mr. Language. But at that stage, the judge wasn't listening. He was busy making a note. So now he's sort of bending over the bench. His clerk sits in front of him in the bench, and he wants to ask his clerk the name of the new witness. So he bent over and he said, what's this bugger's name? And she said, Language, my lord. He says, to hell with my language. What's this bugger's name? apparently the court had to be adjourned on that one. You can imagine.
He just felt the urgency of the moment, right?
Absolutely, and he didn't intend anything wrong about it. In any event, he obviously felt, who does his clerk think he is to, tell him how he should talk or not talk,
How about, I guess in South Africa, the court is similar to ours here, where there are spectators watching the proceedings, and be it family, friends, or just journalists or whoever. Has there ever been any time that someone in the, what's the word, in the gallery?
Public gallery, yeah.
Has there ever been a time someone in the gallery that did something that caused some laughter?
Look, definitely. In fact, the public gallery is often, of course, depends on the kind of case. If you might have followed what has recently happened to one of our athletes that's been charged with allegedly murdering his girlfriend, and the public is of such. In fact, if you can't get in there, the public gallery is overcrowded. Journalists fill the place up. Even with our past President Mandela's divorce, you couldn't get a seat in there, and the whole world's journalists were there. So, you get these things where the public gallery is, and often to keep those people silent and keep the decorum good in court is not easy. So our judges are quite strict. If somebody had to say something that was untoward or even made a noise or became sort of too involved in the case, they would throw them out. They would have them thrown out of the court, and they can even fine them for contempt of court. So very easily, a member in the public gallery does not behave. The judge will, from the bench right there, say, I'm fining you for contempt of court, or you'll have him even incarcerated for contempt of court for a day or so. So they have the powers to do that. But in the public gallery, you will often reaction, but not talking. It's not as if there still seems to be a good respect and decorum in courtrooms, and people won't often talk from the public gallery, which is a good thing. That's the way it should be, of course.
Very interesting. Do you have, we call them bailiffs here. Do you have a bailiff or someone similar to that in your courts?
Your bailiff there is your typical, I think we would call it a court ordinance, or even the clerk of the court. And they run around and give the exhibits up and down to the judge and to the witnesses, and they sort of sort out the court. And of course, there's always, in criminal courts, there is always a member of the police force available, because sometimes some of these gentlemen or people are held in custody, and the constable or the policeman will be with him. So there's always a court bailiff, and there's always, in our criminal courts, even a South African police official which will be present. And so a bailiff of that nature, typically like you would have, we have them in court. In civil courts, sometimes not. Sometimes it will just be the court ordinance. In other words, somebody that sort of takes down and check that the tapes are running and, keep everybody happy. We won't refer to them as a bailiff. It's more a court ordinance.
Where can we get your book, Pierre?
At Author House. It was actually printed in the United States, and you can get it on authorhouse.com. It's one word, Author House, www.authorhouse.com, and it can be ordered on the internet from there. Either you can have it downloaded as an e-book, or you can, order it as a hard copy.
And it's on Amazon also.
Yes, Amazon as well. It's on Amazon, and I think it's on quite a few sites. Author House put them on quite a few sites, so it's quite easy to get it. And I think it's about, I'm not sure, I think it's $2 or $3. It's, for to download it, an ebook, and it's not much, the book either. It's, it's relatively cheap. It's 13 short stories. It consists of about, what I say, 100 pages. It's one of those things that you can read in a 2-hour flight easily.
I haven't read it. I'm going to read it, and I am picturing that this is one of those kind of reads that once you start it, you just don't want to put it down.
I would hope so, George. That I would like your feedback on that. I'm definitely going to send you one. I'd like to hear what you think of it.
So we can get it at Amazon. We can get it at Author House,
That's right.
Barnes and Noble.
Yes, that's right. Have you heard about? Let me tell you about one chapter which is also nice, which I think you will enjoy. You know, I don't know in the States when you sue people for monies due or payable, you add interest, obviously, because let's say it was already due and payable and the guy hasn't paid, so you now sue him for the capital amount plus the interest, especially if it's a debt or a loan or something. And in the Latin word used for per year, let's say 20% per year or 10% per year interest, whatever you might sue for, is per annum, ANNUM. So if you sue in South Africa for, let's say, 1,000 rand and 10% interest thereon per year, you would say the plaintiff claims from the defendant payment of 1,000 rand, and your second prayer in your summons would be an interest to be added at 10% per annum, which means per year. And this typist made an error. She only used one N instead of two N's. So it was now per annum, not per annum. And the lawyer, when he read the prayers to the judge, he said, "My lord, we're seeking interest per annum." And the judge said, "I've heard about paying through your neck, but it's the first time I've ever heard of paying through your end."
Oh, my goodness gracious. Pierre, you have been so gracious, and I feel bad because, let's see, it's 7:12 p.m. here, and it's, 1:12 there in the morning,
right.
in the morning. And you were so gracious. You stayed up, and you came on live with us. And I thank you. I thank you from the bottom of my heart.
George, thanks very much for having me on your show. I really appreciate it. It was most pleasant. I thoroughly enjoyed it. Thanks very much.
And we will keep pushing your book, Laughing Law, and we'll keep announcing where you can get it, and we're looking forward to reading it. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you, George. Have a good day.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, that's a side of the law that I've never heard. You've never heard. You know, that would be very interesting if some judges and lawyers would all group up, get together. I mean, they could probably write one hilarious book of things that took place. And when I listen to this man speak and I listen to his stories, I think, you know, these things aren't rehearsed. They're not planned. Like the 81-year-old man that was sentenced to all those years in prison, and he said, "I can't do that." And the judge said, "Just do the best you can." I mean, they're not rehearsed. They're not planned. And so it just came off the top of the judge's head in response to what the old man said. It would be a fantastic book if some lawyers and judges got together and wrote their stories and had it printed, that we here in the public could read such a thing. I'll be back in just a moment because I'm still thinking about that old gentleman who was sentenced to all them years. I'll be right back in a little bit.
It's so too much, and I feel I should
And our many thanks to Pierre Wolmarans from Johannesburg, South Africa. 6 hours ahead of us, so it's already Friday morning, the AM type, you know what I'm saying? And he was so gracious to stay up late and chat with us. I almost felt guilty every time I'd look at the clock. But nonetheless, it was enlightening, entertaining, and go to Amazon, Author House. Of course, these are .com, Amazon.com, AuthorHouse.com, BarnesandNoble.com, and get the book, Laugh and Law. You can get it in digital form, like, the Kindle, the Nook, all the other different readers, so on and so forth. And you can download it and have it right there. Laugh and Law. And he will tell you some of the funny things that he himself was involved in and stories that other people in the law profession have shared with him. So get it. Laugh and Law by Pierre Wolmarans. Wolmarans. And I think you'll be glad to get it. We're going to get it. My mom and I are going to get it right after the show tonight. So we're looking forward to it. I do want to say this. Tomorrow night, we are going to have a very, what's the word? All of our guests are special. All of our guests are incredible. Tomorrow night, we are going to have a man by the name of Rob Oliver out of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. This young man, let me get this so I can get it right. In August of 1993, so that was what, almost 16 years ago, Rob was paralyzed from the chest down as the result of a body surfing injury. At 21 years old, he was confronted with major life questions and decisions. How do the obstacles in my life affect me? Can I succeed in spite of personal limitations? What makes life meaningful? Rob took these questions to heart and began his work to develop a full and meaningful life. And he wrote, "You are responsible for your own life. The circumstances around you are things that may or may not change. It's your job to find the positive and relish that." Before I go any further, and I am just as guilty, in fact, probably more so than most people. I mean, I can whine sometimes that my mom will say, "Do you want some cheese with that wine?" And it's just trivial things. It's nothing serious. It's nothing devastating. It's just trivial things. Things that bend people out of shape. Things that get we get our panties in a wad. We get twisted and bent over nothing. Or we'll whine about this. We'll whine because we don't have this. Or we'll whine because I can't get this. Or I can't go there. You know, we all do it. We all do it. But then I'm reminded every single time. It might be when I'm interviewing a guest here on the show. Excuse me. It might be when I'm reading an article or a book. It may be when I'm out and about and I run into someone that has been less fortunate than I am, whether it be physical or materialistic. It makes no difference. We all are guilty of this. But when I read this about this young man that we're going to have on with us tomorrow night, one more time I was reminded, I don't have a thing in the world to gripe about. Not one thing. Since his injury, now listen to this, Rob has accomplished what he sees as everyone's goals. He went on to complete his education with a bachelor in psychology from the University of Pittsburgh. That wasn't enough. He followed that up by a master's from Duquesne University. That's in Pittsburgh. Rob married the most wonderful woman in the world. Now check this out. And they have 7-year-old triplets. Even as I read this, and I'm not ashamed to say this, even as I read this, I tear up. Because here is a man that his whole life was changed in a heartbeat. And he could have sat down in despair and agony and woe is me and all those other things. And I cannot honestly tell you how I would react if that happened to me. I have no clue. But this young man, he went on to say everyone's goals might not be triplets, but the goal of marriage and having a family is pretty universal. Today he is working full time. We all have goals. We all have obstacles. We need to assess which will win in each of our lives. If you want to accomplish your goals, you're going to have to deal with the obstacles, but not be overcome by them. Goodness gracious sakes alive. And I forgot to tell you, he's an author. Still Walking, the story of life full of love, laughter, and lessons. Rob Oliver. And he will be with us tomorrow night, 6:30 p.m. Eastern Time, right here on the George Espinlove Show. Oh, did I mention? I don't think I mentioned. If I did, bear with me. He is a motivational speaker. That's right. Companies and churches and other groups get Rob to come and tell his story. And he is an inspiration. And he has been an inspiration to literally thousands of people. He's a motivational speaker. If anyone knows anything about motivation, it's this man. And he'll be with us tomorrow night, 6:30 p.m. Eastern Time. Not only will we have Rob with us, but my friend Neil Haley. Neil is from Pittsburgh. And I got to thinking this afternoon, after I made arrangements with Rob, it would be nice to have Neil come on the show at the same time, and we could all talk. You know, these guys are from Pittsburgh. I'm from Altoona, just over the hill, although I've lived here on the Eastern Shore for 30 years now. But that's the old home stomping grounds. And so I thought it would be nice, the two guys from Pittsburgh and me, we just talk. And we talk about the challenges and the obstacles and the feelings, the emotions that Rob went through and has been through. And so join me tomorrow night as Neil Haley, my co-host from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. We will talk to Rob Oliver out of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. And by the way, Neil told me the last message I received, and let me check something. I'm always reaching for stuff. Why? Yes, he said, I will be traveling. This is Neil speaking. I will be traveling to South Carolina in the car. I will try calling for part of the interview. So Neil is going to be riding down that long, lonesome highway. I'm not going to sing the song. And he'll be my co-host tomorrow night on the George Espinlove Show as we bring Rob Oliver, motivational speaker, husband, father of 7-year-old triplets, been to college, got a master's degree, travels, motivational speaker, and all the while where he was paralyzed from the chest down. He has limited use of his arms in his hands, but he will inspire each and every one of us tomorrow night. And you can go to this website. Let me make sure I have it right. YourMotivationalSpeaker.com. YourMotivationalSpeaker.com. And there you can read all about Rob. There's a video up there. You can see it. But we will post more information tomorrow on our news page, on our radio show news page, and we will let everyone know about it. So tell a friend, tell a family member, tell anyone that will listen to you to tune in tomorrow night. Rob Oliver. And then we'll do this. Won't we, Charlie? I Can't Stop My Heart by Nicole Casey. Wow. Where's my stuff? Where's my stuff? I got it. Let me remind each and every one of you, if you missed last night's show, you missed a doozy. But have no fear. You can go back and you can listen to it anytime your little heart so desires. We had a young lady on last night by the name of Alexis Aiken out of New Orleans, Louisiana. 17 years young. Sings like an angel. And She has already won so many awards, more than we can shake a stick at. Watch her. She is already a shining star. And trust me, that star is going to get brighter. And she has already climbed to heights. But trust me, she's going to climb even higher. Alexis Aiken. Do her a favor, because she, out of, I forget how many, but there was a whole bunch of them. She is one of the finalists in what's called Gulf Coast Jam. So go to Gulf, that's Gulf, GulfCoastJam.com, and vote. She's about halfway down. Alexis Aiken. That's Alexis, and it's spelt with an E. Alexes. Alexis Aiken. On GulfCoastJam.com. Just go down there and put the little dot beside her name and submit, and you can do that every single day. You can vote once a day. And then soon, I forget what date it is, they will have the winner, and that winner is going to be performing with some top-notch names in the country and western field. So remember her, Alexis Aiken. Go to Gulf, Gulf. Gulf, well, let me find it again. Me and my memory. Gulf Coast Jam, GulfCoastJam.com. And we'll thank you for that. Wow. I'll tell you what. I'm just tingling inside because I'm just excited.
We got our people coming round to feel our heat. I got a love respect.
Boys will be boys. K. Lee Rutland. Wow. Well, here comes Fred. Man, we haven't seen Fred in a long, long time. Fred, come over here. Come on, sit down by this mic right here. Fred. Fred? Now, you know what happens. I knew it.
Oi, 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 oi.
Oh, Fred. Oh, Fred. I knew as soon as he was getting himself excited, he was going to start coughing and choking up. You're never going to get rid of that. You're just never going to get rid of that. Now, you want to talk to the audience? You can't. He's not saying anything. He's just shaking his head no. He's sucking air right now. So maybe next time, all right? He's nodding his head. Oh, Charlie, get him something. Help him out the door. Give him some water. Give him something, Charlie. Take care of Fred. Fred, you're going to have to be more careful. Don't get so excited. Wow. Hey, I see the caboose coming. It's coming right around the corner, and we're going to jump as soon as Charlie takes care of Fred. Hurry up, Charlie. Man, there I go. I do want to thank Pierre Wolmarans from South Africa, from Johannesburg, South Africa, who wrote the book Laugh and Law. And he was with us this evening, and he told us some of the funny things that took place when he was in the courtroom, outside the courtroom. Other lawyers have told him, judges, so on and so forth. And he wrote the book Laugh and Law, and you can get it at Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Author House, and you can even get the digital form. So download it, buy the tangible book, the form, in the softback or the hardback. Either way, get it. It ought to be very, very interesting. Laugh and Law. I know I've never heard any light things about what takes place in the courtroom, but this is different. Different perspective, different side that I've never seen before. Tomorrow night, join me, 6:30 p.m. Eastern Time, right here on Spreaker.com, and we will be having with us Rob Oliver from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and Neil Haley will be joining me as my co-host tomorrow night as he travels down that long, lonesome highway. And so we will be here at 6:30 p.m. Eastern Time tomorrow night. Remember, there's a whole lot of love coming to you from the Funny Farm, wherever you're at. If it's nighttime, have a great and a very pleasant night. If it's already tomorrow, like daytime where you're at, then you have a fine, fine day. But regardless of where you are and what it is, till tomorrow night, same time, same station, tune in again, and we'll have a good one. Until then, my friend, stay safe, be kind one to another, don't take no wooden nickels. God bless you real good. Good night, everybody.